Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Evil Season 4, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we're picking up where the last episode left off. I love that we're kind of getting the same scene, but we're kind of getting a little bit of Cheryl's perspective, her just sitting there maniacally just waiting for Leland, and him trying to gaslight her, being like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's like, dude, I know you gave this to Andy to go after Laura. The fact of the matter is, I was super kosher, okay with everything we do, as long as you kept your hands off my granddaughter. So, because you didn't, I'm going to have to cut your dick off. Which is like, man, dicks are getting all the punishment lately. More recently, if you've watched The Boys, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I just thought that was so interesting. Because like I said, she's in this weird spot when it comes to Kristen, but I guess it's like, right, they're not likely, they need Kristen, they would never hurt her, we want Kristen on our side, so I guess it's never been a concern for Cheryl in that department, but the grandchildren, at least Lexi is kind of okay, where the other three are kind of up for grabs, especially Lynn going down the religious route. I don't know how that would fare for her. Lila and Laura seem like they could just as easily be. I mean, Laura in particular was the sacrificial lamb because she's got, you know, the weaker heart and everything. And he's trying to be like, yeah, I wasn't going to kill your granddaughter. I was just going to try and make Andy see how much he needed a son. It's like, needed a son. It's like, yes, by killing the youngest. So it's like, he's trying to say, like, right, like, you going to war with me will not benefit you. The fact of the matter is, without, like, those things, that stuff in the jars, it's like, you will age 20 years in 2 days, it was like 20 years and 20 days or something like that. And she's like, oh, well, see how you fare, because she's like, cool, I smashed a lot of yours. I made sure to take some supplies of my own. It's like, oh, I wasn't just waiting here for nothing. I not only smashed up your place, got some for me, and I specifically left enough here to just smash it just to piss you off. And I love it turned into a stabbing situation. She got stabbed in like the shoulder area. He got stabbed in the leg, and she's like, yeah, luckily you're too short in that area or something like that. He's like, oh, like, what makes you think you're going to come out on top? She's like, when it comes to you and me, I'm willing to bet on me. Like, never count me out. So this war between Leland and Cheryl is definitely going to be interesting. Well, once again, she's coming for the throne for the entire operation. Obviously, the operation made it clear how they feel about women. So it's like, but to be fair, Cheryl's been kind of like sowing seeds of like a coup, a mutiny, regardless. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I was wondering whether she's going to take Timothy with her. No, she left him with Leland, and I love the beautiful, like, Leland's bleeding out, having to deal with a crying baby. It's like, all right, let me use Kristen's voice, and then we find out Cheryl did the pettiest thing she could. She deleted all the recordings. I wonder, did she delete those remotely, or she had a set up timer so that the moment Leland tried to use them, because the moment he activates it, then they started deleting. It wasn't like they were already deleted. That's the extra fuck you in that regard of like, oh, you needed it this moment? Oh yeah, like here, let me get rid of everything. I was like, oh, that's so good. And him calling her out. And so, obviously, this whole situation puts Kristen in a very complicated spot. It's like, cool, my mom was hurt, but we're not on good terms. All the manipulation and you and Leland, but she is like, right, me and my mom are not on good terms, but we are united on one front of fuck Leland. You know, and I love that he's running his mouth and stuff like that. He's like, are you dead? And she's like, yeah, you might want to like wait till you find out who's on the other side of the line, you stupid idiot. And he's like, oh, wait till you find out all the stuff your mom does. He's like, hey, I know what you're afraid of most, Leland. Unity. So me and my mom got this. You are dead. My mom said you're dead. I'm saying you're dead. So yeah, that kind of blew back in Leland's face, and that's the last time we see Leland in the episode. Later on, Cheryl's trying to apologize to Kristen, but she's like, I don't want to hear anything else. You're injured right now. I'll take care of you. But where we are right now is where it stands. Because she still has a lot to answer for. Because she also hasn't told Kristen, like, yeah, so the whole Andy thing, right, we were kind of hypnotizing. Because you're going to have to Are you're gonna have, even if you admit you know what Leland was doing, how do you know? That means you were aware of it. It's like, how much of the truth is Cheryl gonna say? She's probably gonna point out all the terrible things Leland did that she wasn't, and she'll probably feign ignorance about certain things because it's like, oh, Andy's going crazy. It's like, no, Andy's going crazy because Leland made him that way. Leland was brainwashing him. So the sooner Cheryl shares that information, the sooner Andy can come home. But she's probably going to bite the bullet on that because, it's kind of pleading the fifth type of situation of like, yeah, I don't want to admit my wrongdoing, my part to play this. I knew what was going on. Wasn't expecting him to use Andy to try and kill Laura just to put Timothy at home. But it's still the thing of, you knew what was going on. In fact, you tried to manipulate Andy, trying to get him to get you back in good graces with Kristen, back home with the girls and everything. So we'll see how Cheryl handles that going forward. I'm curious with those jars and stuff. Is she going to be able to recover faster? Well, she needs them regardless, so that it's like you're screwed without them. So she's just going ahead and injecting herself. But I'm wondering, will that speed up the healing process? Maybe, maybe not. It might be a moot point. Either way, so all the while that's going down, the main overarching thing in this episode is a train engineer named Tyrus. Man, oh man, that was like, that whole sequence where he's talking about his job and stuff, I was like, that's dark, that's depressing, and that's horrible. It's dark, depressing, and horrible. The fact is, he's like, yeah, sometimes people lay on the tracks. Either they're either drunk and they pass out and fall, or they are there particular just trying to take their own life. And he's like, at the speed you go, by the time you recognize that's someone on the track, you blow the horns, you try to hit the brakes, but you need like 200 yards leeway before you like come to a full stop. So he has to come out, check the train. He even says like later on, they have to inspect, like whenever you think you hit something, you have to stop and expect at least 2 train cars back. The length of 2 train cars to see if you actually hit anything. Because he'd even said, like, right, when you find out you hit something, it's just like there's nothing but like blood, and it's like you run over them quite a bit by the time you're able to, like, the train is able to come to a complete stop. You're like, I'm like, and there's no like real vacation from that, which is horrendous. Like, that's psychologically damaging. That's fucked. You need a break after that. You need some therapy, but maybe they're like, get over it. It's like, the fact is, it happens so frequently enough. So there's also, like, he even calls it like the death stretch. I don't know if that's where a lot of people died or where specifically it's where he keeps seeing this girl in the prom dress, because he ran her over, but then like every time he keeps seeing her over and over, so he thinks he's being haunted. He's also seeing her being dragged away by something. So when they get to that part in the train tracks, it's just David and Ben, but David sees a demon, but Ben doesn't, of course. But the really interesting thing was that the spot where they end up stopping, where Tyrus keeps seeing, is it Tyrus or Tyus? I think it's Tyrus, keeps seeing the demon, not the demon, but the girl in white. Lo and behold, it's right above Kristen's house. It's like, that is fascinating. It's like, yeah, it always kind of, no matter what, Kristen's not even technically involved with the case because she's dealing with everything with her mom this episode, but it was like, yeah, the case found its way to your literal doorstep. So they end up checking the nearby, bridge of the train tracks, and it turns out there are claw marks going from the top of it down to the lower parts of it. So it's like, so there might be validity to what David said, which David wants to investigate, which Kristen's like, no, I don't want an exorcism and stuff like that, because she's trying to do the separation of church and state. It's like, right, my job is my job. I don't want that bleeding over into my personal life, even though there is no separating it at this point in time. So she's kind of like not really down for that, but the girls are like, right, they overhear all this, so they're like, cool, let's investigate. Because Lynn got found out because all the sisters are tattling on each other, because Laura told on Lila, who was basically copied and pasted. I don't know if it was like an AI generated article that she had to write for class. Like, she had to write an article, but she used AI to kind of fill in the blanks. Laura gets called up because apparently she's chewing tobacco at school. She's like, that was a dare. You tell us not to back down. It's like, you guys are so back-asswards. And then Laura proceeds to rat out Lynn about, like, right, she's not going to see Ren. And it's like, yeah, I'm going. Because she, I guess, without really, because I was wondering, like, oh, does Kristen know? Because they were like, oh, the conversation had come up previously about Kristen having some, no, it was like Lila and Lynn a couple episodes, was that, no, that was episode 6. No, episode 5 was kind of like, oh, like, mom has an idea that you're asking. I guess maybe Lynn was just naturally inquisitive or something like that. So, but I was under the impression like, oh, Kristen saw some of the stuff, even though Lynn tried to hide it. It's like, no, Kristen was completely blindsided by, wait, you're going to see Sister Andrea about this, and she confronts Andrea, and it turns out, oh, there was a permission slip signed and stuff like that. Because Andrea initially told Lynn, like, I don't want to do this behind your mom. It is such an interesting and complicated thing because it's like, once again, I have the inverse of like Kristen's situation. Like, once again, my family is decently religious. My mom and my sister are, my eldest sister and my mom are. My dad's religious enough, but I don't know if he really goes to church a lot. He might be more, he's religious, but he's not like heavily religious. But my mom and sister definitely are. And my other sister, I'm like, I don't know. I think she's religious. So like, I'm probably like the least religious person in my family. Once again, I don't even know where I'm lie. Am I don't know. I've talked about it in the past. I don't know where I stand with the whole religion thing, but like, it's such a complicated thing where it's like you are a certain religion, and it's like if you are a certain religion, your child's most likely going to be a certain religion because you're going to grow them up in that. So, but she's like, right, I want to like girls to not have to worry about that because she sees the drawbacks to religion. She talks about it with Sister Andrea later on, like, my girls are so bright and I don't want them to basically be dulled and lose a little bit of their luster of who they could be, what they could contribute to the world by religion. Because she's like, I see that like in that position, like they have to basically kowtow themselves to like men. And even Andrea is like, yeah, there are some idiot priests, but I still keep my will. But it's still like Kristen works enough on her job to see like how like women get relegated in the church. So it's like she doesn't want that for Lynn, because she even references, I forgot the name she said, but I remember the episode. It's like, yeah, the person she became friends with at that silent place. I think that was season 2. I feel like that was season 2, but maybe it was season 1, but I feel like it was season 2. That's the person she was referencing. It's like, yeah, like this person was so much fun, and I don't want my daughters to kind of lose that. Like, it's kind of like you kind of lose a little luster in life by joining the church and stuff. So, I mean, that's also a reason why she kind of didn't want David to become a priest. It's like, yeah, they're still fun, but she still sees like, but also he's in a different position. He's a man in the church. Granted, he's a black man in the church, so that's a whole other level to it and lane to it. But yeah, it's like you're talking about not just women, you're talking about your daughter. So it's a little bit of a different situation in a lot of regards and capacities. So coming at it from your friend David becoming a priest versus your daughter Lynn becoming a nun. So. But my point for all that is because it's like, yeah, like your children should be able to make their own choices. So it's understandable where she's coming from with her concerns about Lynn losing a little bit of herself in pursuit of this. But it also is like, yeah, it's up to their decision. Like if I ever have kids, I'll leave it up to them to decide what they would do. I would never force like I said, because I don't even know where my beliefs are. I'm gonna let you go. The whole point, and that's something that Andrea and Kristen kind of strike a balance with of. All right, Lynn can see and study with Sister Andrea, but I have to be there, and it just can't be a forced situation. It's got to be her having this well-rounded perspective. Sister Andrea will come at it from like the church perspective. I'll come at it from like the very realistic, scientific perspective. I also say this as someone like, once again, I've not been to proper church since I was a little kid. I just stopped going and no one just ever cared. But I did like a couple years back do a Bible study for like Jehovah's Witness stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'm just not really into it, and just kind of called it quits. It is what it is. Still kind of get called like, oh, like you should stop it. Yeah, so, but yeah, I've never like, I don't feel the religious pull. I find religion interesting. more mainly for entertainment and story purpose wise, which seems kind of fucked up in a way. But yeah, I just on a personal level, at least where I am in my life, religion's just never mattered to me up until this point. Who knows what the future can hold? Shit could always go sideways, and I find myself to be like a super religious person in the future. I doubt that with my personality and just who I am as a person, but you never know. Fate can strike you at like the lowest points in your life and the wildest and most unpredictable points in your life. But anyway, I'm going on this massive tangent. It just kind of feeds into that, parallel of like I can understand where Kristen's coming from. And like I said, I think it's interesting because I have like the opposite situation of Kristen in that regard. But either way, circling back to it, like the girls were hunting for ghosts and they're trying to explain to their mom, like, okay, there's stuff happening here. We should get, like, Father Acosta to, like, kind of examine stuff. But Kristen's like, no. And even saying, like, Sister Andrea sees stuff. She sees depression as demons and it's not real. And then it's like, oh, yeah, this app. She's coming at it from a realistic perspective of, yeah, this thing is scanning our house and it's there to sell you ads about stuff that it believes you should buy. So you can see it's not even being cynical, it is just being realistic, but it's like, don't like, and then she kind of gets caught up in it when they're like, wait, why do you participate in exorcisms if you think it's BS? She's like, I don't really participate in them. It's part of my job. But it's like, then why? It's like, well, it acts as a placebo. She's like, they're like, okay, then give us a placebo by letting us do, like, as she says, a minor exorcism. So David comes along, and Lynn even asks for Sister Andrea to come along, which I do love, and you can tell it bothers Kristen a little bit. While she's watching this all unfold, she's seeing, like, Lynn be so enamored by Sister Andrea. So, because even David sees things that aren't always there, but it is interesting that, like, and it kind of plays into the fact is, like I've talked about in the previous episode, of how Sister Andrea is the only one that sees more. She sees more often than David does. David kind of, it feels like from time to time he gets a peek, whereas like Sister Andrea's eyes are wide open. So they're trailing around. I thought they would see when she was using the holy water, but to them it just looks like, hey, she's splashing water in this bathroom. But it's like we, as the audience, can see like it's sizzling from like whatever demon ecto goo it's touching. Then we got the hole in the basement which she crawls into, and I was like, is this supposed to be the gateway to hell? Thought the particle accelerator was. How far is the particle accelerator from Kristen's house? Like, I doubt it's in the raid, because we haven't really circled back to that conversation. Like, the earlier episodes, like the first 2 or 3 episodes, were close enough proximity to the particle accelerator, but we haven't really at least mentioned there being any correlation or connection beyond that now. But we'll see. Either way, Sister Andrea meets Lou, who seems so lackadaisical. I always struggle with that word now. I used to be able to say it now. He seems so relaxed and just kind of like, yeah, I'm here resting. And she's trying the holy water. He's like, yeah, that's not going to work here. Nothing you do to cross, none of that works here because you have no power here. But I can hurt you. Grabs her hand and burns it. So I'm like, so Lou is like, has Kristen's house become like, has it become one, or has it always been a stopgap? It's just Kristen's not a believer, so she's never seen or really experienced it. Which, once again, it's so wild considering, like, well, what's happening to your children, specifically Lexi. I cannot let that go. We haven't really dealt with it more than like her interactions with Timothy, but like one of your kids is kind of going through a demon thing and a tail thing, which we haven't seen the tail thing come back, but it's like it's there, but a lot of stuff's happened underneath your nose that wasn't even aware of. I mean, even with the supernatural demon stuff, the Andy stuff can still be just seen as, oh, you're hypnotizing him. She can she can understand that and make sense of like, oh, like from a psychological standpoint, you're hypnotizing Andy to do horrendous stuff, so. But yeah, like Sister Andrea stays by as like Ben gets supplies, some bricks dropped off so they can close up the hole. But like I said, it was this interesting conversation between Kristen and Sister Andrea. And like I said, the promise of, I won't push Lynn to go down any route. I will answer any questions she has or you have. And just Kristen saying like, right. It seems like the further I try to push religion out of my life, the more it kind of doubles down and comes into my life. It's like, oh, that's because God loves you. And she's like, cool, maybe he can just leave me alone. How about that? So, kind of a neat bonding display, and I think that's supposed to be, it's representative also. I bring it up time and time again too of like David and Kristen's relationship. They do not always see eye to eye, and that was a heavier point of contention in the first season, but it hasn't been as heavy of a point of contention. It's still there, but not as bad as it was in season 1, in my opinion, especially in some of the later episodes. Well, earlier episodes to like mid episodes in the season. But putting that aside, the whole does get covered, but we don't know if there's really been any solution to that, because Lexi wakes up in the middle of the night. She goes, like, feels, I mean, like I said, it is interesting. Out of anyone, it's her. She goes outside and uses the app, and a whole bunch of presences are felt. So you're like, because I was thinking that too. This might be a Stranger Things thing of, oh, you closed the gate, but like what slipped through in the process? Like what normally would have gone through the hole and stayed there, whatever comes in and out of the hole, like what came out, like, because obviously Sister Andrea was there to make sure Lou didn't get out, but maybe there's stuff that slipped through that even she couldn't see, or all this stuff was already here. Like maybe, like I said, Kristen's place is like a stopgap. It's where a lot of stuff, supernatural stuff, comes to go through that hole, and now it's patched up. Lou's stuck on the other side, but whatever's outside, very Mind Flayer-esque, will not like find its way through. Well, that's kind of an asterisk beside the Mind Flayer, what we know so far about where things are in Stranger Things currently post season 4. You get what I'm saying? So that's why Mind Flayer has an asterisk beside that. But either way, I mean, because it seems like Cyrus is at least okay, because he's like, yeah, like I no longer see the woman in white, so like things have been good. He's better, so it's like, oh. And even they had the conversation at the end, like, oh yeah, like everything kind of got resolved, and like, yeah, that's kind of a win for the win column. And Ben's like, yeah, how many wins is that? 4? And it's like, yeah, when you think about the grand scheme of things, they have not. A lot of their cases are very open ended. Like I can't really think off the top of my head fully resolved cases. There was kind of like the kid that was kind of evil. The parents murdered the kid. That was kind of like a fucked up resolution to that episode. But for the most part, like most episodes aren't like resolved. And it's just like sometimes you get a couple episodes later, or maybe a season or so later, you might circle back to it at some point. But some stuff is just kind of like left unresolved. So it like my point is just like, right, there are very few wins in the win columns because there's such ambiguity with some of like the endings to these stories. They're meant to be kind of almost like not unsatisfied, but just kind of be like, well, what the fuck does that mean? You know, it's open-ended in so many capacities. So, and like I said, it was just a correlation of everything that is like, was this even a win column with the ending of this episode, with everything with Lexi and the ghost and stuff? So, I mean, what happened there at the end? Like, is Kristen going to come outside and find her, like, screaming? Like, what's going to happen on that front? You know, was everything resolved? Even with all this, Kristen's not going to want them back in the house, like David or Sister Andrea, because it was supposed to all be good. This house is cleared. Apparently not. Or will Lexi just not say anything to anybody? Maybe she'll talk to her grandmother about it. We'll have to wait and see where that goes. And finally, another side of this episode revolves around Ben, as he comes home one point and finds that Renee had moved in. And it's like, oh, because you told me to move in. It's like, wait, what? So now Ben is starting to lose his mind. He had this conversation with David and Kristen about not sure what to believe anymore. Like, he's like, even told David, it's like, yeah, before I started working with you, my life was normal. I knew what was real, what wasn't. He was so sure about it. And as the show has progressed, he has been sure for so long, but now that surety, like that 100% certainty has flayed away more and more. Whereas Kristen's kind of tried to, she's kind of more past where Ben is, because Ben has been on shaky ground for a while, but like this season in particular, the particle accelerator situation really like shook him. Whereas like Kristen is kind of like heavily pushed to the other side. I think she always ignored and kind of kept her own narrative in a lot of ways, just because she's like, right, it'll help in the long run to have a rational perspective on it. And it's the placebo effect of like, right, I'll play into whatever notions people need me to, but I'll keep my scientific rationality about it. But she's kind of on that corner on her own now, as Ben slipping further in the middle of not sure what to make of things. He's a little caught between David, who believes, and Kristen, who doesn't. So as that pendulum's kind of moved and swayed so much for a lot of these characters, obviously Ben and Kristen the most, but Kristen in particular has kind of swayed on both ends of that spectrum and that pendulum. But because Ben is, with all of this going on and the Renee stuff and not remembering stuff, and it's like, wait, did I really do that? That doesn't make any sense. He's like, this is the opposite of me. This is a whole id thing. So he ends up talking to his sister about it. His sister's like, okay, so you're seeing a djinn, like you're in that talking about a pendulum. She's like, you are stuck in the middle of like, you can't really give into your atheism in this point in time, because you are someone stuck in this miracle spot of like this glorious untapped spot of that line between science and religion. You're in that sweet spot with everything that's happened to you. Because he's like, yeah, like I'm seeing like mainly like flashes of my childhood. And she's like, and he's like, oh, every time I see the djinn afterwards I have a migraine. It's like, yeah, Dad was the same way. And it turns out every time his dad had like a migraine, his sister's like, Dad kind of used it as an excuse to cheat. And it's like the moment Mom died, suddenly those like migraines went away. So it's like interesting. So now like even Ben's like, wait, was Dad using them as an excuse to cheat? And now it's like, did he go through the same thing Ben did? Did he actually cheat? His sister just kept being like, yo, talk to Dad. So it is interesting that Ben's going through what he's going through with the id situation, and it's like, you know, maybe like his dad was experiencing the exact same thing of like there was another side of him, almost like a Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, and like that other side of him, the Mr. Hyde thing, was what was kind of like having the affair when he wasn't. So maybe it wasn't him using it as a justification. Maybe from an outside scientific perspective, it's like, oh, you're just making stuff up. But maybe there was, well, also from a scientific perspective, you could almost be like, it's kind of a dissociative, like an undiagnosed, like dissociative order or something like that. So, and the fact is, it went away the moment their mom died. So maybe there's justification of like, no, it was just him just straight up using it as an excuse. But with everything going on with Ben, and it's just like, Renee eventually got tired of it, because he started being like, oh, like, right, I don't have any logs or records of my phone of you calling. She's like, oh, so you're gaslighting me. And so I guess Ben was deleting them every time. So he's driving himself a little insane. The other him is like not only making these calls to Renee and saying all this stuff, whispering all these sweet nothings into her ear, he's also deleting it, making Ben seem even crazier. And I feel like Renee should be a little more understanding when he's like, yo, I don't know what's going on. I literally told you before we even got really serious that he's like, I didn't remember. Like, she thought it was kind of cute or whatever. And then later on says like, right, I prefer that Ben over the Ben you are right now, because sadly this Ben that you are right now is who you are most of the time and not the fun Ben. But I'm like, I don't know, lady. It just seems a little effed up, because he already told you, like, he's not trying to gaslight you. Maybe she thinks he's bullshitting, but it's like, you have your whole thing with Jesus and you want to believe him, but you're also just kind of like, he told you from the beginning, and you even explained like, oh, this is kind of an it thing, but it's like you... And it seems so weird to be so pissed about the hot and cold when he's literally telling you, I don't remember any of these conversations. Like, it isn't a thing of, oh, I'm second guessing this, because that's what she's coming at it from the perspective of like, oh, you felt a certain way, like your it is speaking its mind, but you won't. I know what you're secretly feeling this way, but all of a sudden you backtrack, and it's like, because for Ben, it's like, it doesn't feel like this is me, so it doesn't make sense. So he tries to tell Renee, like, okay, I will try being that Ben, but she's like, no, I'm done. I'm tired of playing these games. And it's like, yeah, he's just left lost and confused. So I'd love to, hopefully we do get the conversation between him and his dad, and we kind of get some clarity on that. You know, what he'll kind of recognize from it when he tells his dad, like, will he tell his dad directly, like, yeah, I've been seeing a djinn, and his dad will be like, yo, I saw the same thing, and so what's happening to Ben happened to his dad with all those affairs he was having. Which is kind of sad, because it's like no one would believe you if you told them the truth, because it's still you cheating, even though it's something else entirely, like I said, whether it's a dissociative thing or not. we'll have to wait to see what becomes of that, where all of this ends up taking us going forward. I should also note something. I looked this up. I didn't realize the show had gotten canceled. I thought like it ending with season 4 was because they made the decision to end it with season 4. Or at least the show got canceled and they were like, right, season 4 was going to be the final season. I don't know whether this show was like they've already filmed season 4 and then it was kind of like, did they found out it was canceled? Too late for them to go back and change stuff. I don't know where in the process they found it, because I feel like I don't remember when season 3 ended whether or not it was known there was going to be a 4th season. I think the information it being the final season came out later, I think. Either way, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I was just looking this up, and I was so confused because I was reading something on Wikipedia being like, oh, because I was like getting some of the episode titles, because sometimes I do that from Wikipedia or IMDb, whichever one I end up clicking on. I just double check because sometimes like there's inconsistency on episode titles. Either way. It says that the show is coming back for a 5th and final season, but it's only 4 episodes. So that's what confused me. I was like, wait, I thought season 4 was supposed to be the final season. So if you look on the Wikipedia, it has season 4 and it says 14 episodes. So this is the 4 bonus, because the 4 bonus episodes are supposed to technically air the week after, the next week following episode 10 of this season, which would be the season finale. So it's like, are they just going to lump those? Because it seems like they're bonus episodes, and I don't know if they're just narratively like episodes they already had done, or were these episodes they were able to squeeze in? Like, will the show even have a proper ending? There's so much that I was like, wait, I thought this was going to have like a proper ending, because I thought they went into this knowing it was a final season. That was a misconception on my part. So I don't know whether these bonus episodes are going to be like the Lucifer bonus episodes. Like season 3 had like 2 bonus episodes. They were going to be what was originally at the time planned to be season 4. They were going to be random episodes in season 4, but because like the show got canceled at Fox, those just became bonus episodes. Because of the nature of those stories, they could just be put in anywhere. So they just became bonus episodes, and eventually the show went to Netflix and got more seasons, obviously. But I don't know, structurally speaking, storytelling-wise, are these bonus episodes exactly like that? Where it's like, do they narratively clear everything up? Or are they just random episodes that are just going to be tacked on at the end? Or will they be delineated as season 5? Because even on IMDb, it just says season 4. And like I said, even on Wikipedia, it's season 4. And it says it's going to be 14 episodes. So maybe some places are going to delineate it as like, oh, these 4 episodes are season 5. Or maybe there's some decision of like, no, we're not going to make it a separate season. It's just going to be part of season 4. I don't know. I discovered that earlier today, so I just wanted to kind of incorporate that in this discussion, because that was just kind of confused the hell out of me, because that's what I get for like not looking too deeply into stuff, because I just don't want to know stuff. I just went into, it's like, okay, it's the final season, whatever this is, I accept it as it is as the end, but that just kind of threw me for a loop. But whatever the case may be, like I said earlier, we'll see how it all plays out when we get there. We still got a couple episodes left before we even really get there, like really 2, because I know episode 8 came out this week and I'm getting this late, but I'm almost caught up now. So 2 more episodes, and then the 4 episodes, whatever those bonus episodes, 4 bonus episodes end up being, whatever the case may be. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.